So today I was reminded of a player the Edmonton Oilers used to house, a guy who had a boatload of potential, and somebody that really, absolutely did not live up to any of it. Today, we are talking about the 2016 4th overall pick, Jesse Puljujarvi. And the reason we are making this video is because, firstly, we had ourselves an update from the TSN guys as to what Puljujarvi's plan appears to be, and I also wanted to use this video as an opportunity to talk about the big lose-lose trade, that in which Puljujarvi was a part of earlier this year. So, when it comes to that 2016 NHL Entry Draft, I feel like a lot of people will immediately note two busts in the top 5 of that selection. First overall, you had Austin Matthews. He's totally okay. He's fine. Second overall, Patrik Laine. Had to bounce around a little bit, but with Winnipeg, he was alright. With Columbus, he's pretty alright too. Not a bust there. Third overall, Pierre-Luc Dubois, you could say he's had an up-and-down career, but he is still a very good player. And then the two busts that came in this top 5 were the two next picks. Puljujarvi, the projected 3rd overall pick, went to the Oilers at number 4. Everybody was saying that McDavid and Puljujarvi was going to be the next Gretzky and Curry, which is kind of a ridiculous comparison when you think about it now, but, I mean, that's what people were saying back at the time. And then the other bust in the top 5 was the 5th overall pick, the Vancouver Canucks selecting Olli Juolevi. That's a video for another day. I feel like we've talked about that a bunch over the past few years too. But when it comes to Jesse Puljujarvi at 4, this was a pick that a lot of Oilers fans were super excited about 7 years ago when it was made. And for good reason, too. Jesse Puljujarvi, as a 17-year-old in the World Juniors that year, had 17 points in 7 games played. 5 goals, 12 assists. He was looking like this guy that could become a power forward playmaker with a really good stride and just an immovability to his game. You talk about Patrik Laine and his goal-scoring qualities, Puljujarvi was supposed to be that two-way beast to complement as a winger. Puljujarvi was ranked to go 3rd across the board, and some people were even debating whether or not he could have been a better player or a better prospect than Patrik Laine. Back when those two guys were terrorizing the World Juniors, it was a very legitimate comment to make. But of course, we know that Puljujarvi did not go 2nd, he did not go 3rd even, he slipped to 4th overall. And I remember a lot of the memes tossed around in this time frame saying, oh, even when the Oilers don't win the draft lottery, they still win the draft, because they get guys that slip to them that were supposed to go a lot higher. How crazy is that? And maybe, I feel like now, taking a look at Jarmo Kekalainen's comments as to why he had passed on Puljujarvi at 3rd overall to take Dubois instead, think about that, eh? A Finnish GM passing on the projected 3rd overall Finn to take a Canadian center instead. It wasn't a great look back then, but it's a move that paid off, because Dubois was a much better player. Puljujarvi was never able to garner any sort of success at the NHL level that was akin to the scouting reports and the hype around this guy. He maxed out at 36 points in 65 games, which is great, but the season after he declined so steadily that it was kind of just a travesty all around. Puljujarvi spent some time in the NHL, he was down to the AHL, he went back to Finland for a stint before returning to the NHL, and last season he had 14 points in 58 games played, only to get sent over to the Carolina Hurricanes, gathering 2 points in 17 games there. Puljujarvi suited up for the Hurricanes in the playoffs, he had 1 point in 7 games, and then he had surgery upon being a free agent, which is why he is not signed to an NHL team today. Here is the article, it's an article, yeah, that's correct, with a video attached to it of the TSN crew, so Darren Dreger, Pierre LeBrun, Gino Reda, Chris Johnston, talking about Puljujarvi and how he's eyeing an NHL return as soon as November. The link to this page is going to be in the description, but if you want to read the quote here, this is what Mike Johnston said. The rehab process has been very encouraging for Jesse Puljujarvi, so well in fact that he may be ready to return to the NHL as soon as next month. And so, when it was revealed that he would need double hip surgery in the offseason, he didn't receive a qualifying offer from the Hurricanes, and he is now a UFA. He's back in Finland now, he has resumed skating, and is said to be feeling strong and looking for a new deal. Perhaps a low-risk option, low-cost option for a team to bring in during the season. And so, for Puljujarvi and his recovery, obviously this is what we want to see. We want to see hockey players who are talented enough to play in the NHL, right? How crazy is that? We don't want to say that Puljujarvi not playing is a good thing. That sucks. Injuries happen, hopefully he's recovering properly, and from the looks of it, it sounds like he is. But what I wanted to also talk about was the lose-lose trade which sent Puljujarvi to Carolina in the first place. Because if you go over to the details, it was essentially just a one-for-one trade. Carolina acquired Jesse Puljujarvi from the Edmonton Oilers in exchange for Patrik Puistola. This was 7 months ago, and if you take a look at what Patrik Puistola is up to nowadays, the guy's rights ended up expiring with the Edmonton Oilers, and he is a free agent too. The Oilers lost Puljujarvi pretty much for nothing, and for Patrik Puistola, the guy that was supposed to be coming back in return, he was not impressive enough in the Oilers' eyes to warrant being given a contract. Thus, he is a 22-year-old guy who is still chillin' in the Finnish Liga, having 3 points in 8 games played so far with Jukurit. Now, I'm going to be honest, I actually do like Patrik Puistola quite a bit, and part of the reason for that is because his draft-eligible profile in 2019 was so good that I actually made the Why I Want video about this guy, labeling him as the Finnish Elias Pettersson. This was because when he was 17, 18 years old, Patrik Puistola in the Mestis, which was the second-tier Finnish league, was over a point per game. He was a really good player in Finland as an underage guy in the second pro league. So the fact that this guy was able to outscore a bunch of men in his 18-year-old season, 17, 18-year-old season, that was a big green flag to me, especially with the way Puistola played the game. The shiftiness he displayed, the slipperiness around the offensive zone, the shooting ability. There were a lot of Elias Pettersson-like qualities in Puistola's game, which is why we made the Why I Want video saying, yeah, he's kind of like a Finnish Petey. Alas, he went in the third round to Carolina, bounced around with a bunch of Liga teams, Tappara, Jukurit, Kuku, JYP, eventually going over to Jukurit in 22-23, where he had 40 points in 60 games played. He had split the season as a Carolina Hurricanes prospect and then as an Oilers prospect, but for the guys over there in Oiltown, they did not find it necessary to give this guy a contract, thus losing out on him. He's a free agent, and with the Carolina Hurricanes losing out on Puljujarvi as well, this trade ultimately was a big lose-lose for every party involved. Puljujarvi did not impress in Carolina, Puistola did not impress in front of the Oilers to get a contract. Both the Oilers and the Hurricanes lost out on these assets for pretty much nothing that's affecting their team now. Hence the lose-lose trade. In fact, if you wanted to say that the Oilers done goofed Puljujarvi's development as much as they could have, then he could have said, yeah, the best case scenario for Puljujarvi would have been to trade him last year. After he had the very strong 22-23, where he scored 36 points in 65 games in the regular season, ignore the playoff production because he wasn't good there, capitalize on what he did in the regular season, trade him then, and maybe try to get a better prospect or a pick that you could actually use and get somebody that you value more in the draft. Puistola is a good player, in my opinion. Sure, the point production at the Jukurit this season has declined significantly, but I still do believe in the profile that he presents. It's just super unfortunate that he had happened to be involved in this type of a deal with another bust, a guy who was not good enough to make an impact with the Carolina Hurricanes, who didn't have enough trust in him to get a contract after having surgery and needing extra time to recover. The Carolina Hurricanes said, okay, well, we'll just use our contract spots on another guy who could actually help us out and who projects better than JP. So with Puljujarvi heading back into the NHL sometime next month, signing a contract maybe, and finding himself on a new team that could bolster up his career once again, obviously we are hoping for the best. We want to see Puljujarvi break out into the bison that we thought he could be. Back in 2016, people were projecting Puljujarvi as a potential 60, 70-point guy with very strong two-way power forward-like qualities. Think maybe Mark Stone with a little bit more pace. That was kind of the profile people believed that Puljujarvi could attain back in 2016 because of how dominant he was at the World Juniors. However, now he's nothing near that. So let me know your thoughts if you're an Oilers fan. What are your opinions about the way Puljujarvi was developed? What are your thoughts about the story of the Bison? If you're a Hurricanes fan, how did Puljujarvi play for you in the postseason last season? And fans of either of these two teams, is there anything more you would have wanted to see out of Patrik Puistola? Were any of you actually paying attention to this guy? I know I was, because I liked him enough to make a Why I Want video. I always try to keep in touch with the guys that I talk about when they're under 18, and yeah, that's a terrible sentence. Oh my goodness. I'll rephrase that by saying I want to make sure the prospects that I make videos about actually have good careers. And for Puistola, that has not happened in the NHL, but we'll see what happens as his career goes on. Thoughts in the comment section below about Puljujarvi, the lose-lose trade with Carolina, etc. and more. I hope you enjoyed this video, and bye.